The laughter came before the case even truly began. It wasn't nervous laughter or awkward tension breaking in the room. It was arrogant laughter, loud, smug, and soaked in the confidence of someone who had spent years believing nobody could ever challenge her authority. That sound echoed through the courtroom while the cameras rolled, and before the day was over, it would become one of the most replayed courtroom moments in television history. Karen Mitchell, the woman many would later nickname Fat Karen online, leaned back in her seat with a grin that suggested she thought she was running the courtroom instead of standing inside it as a plaintiff. The way she looked at Judge Judy carried pure condescension, like a mother humoring a child who didn't understand the rules of the game. Karen had ruled Willow Creek Estates for nearly 10 years as president of the Homeowners Association. In that neighborhood, she wasn't simply a board member. She was judge, jury, and executioner. Every warning letter, every fine, every complaint she filed gave her a sense of control she clearly enjoyed far too much. Neighbors whispered about her behind closed doors. Some compared her to a strict principal who never outgrew the need to punish people. She didn't organize block parties or welcome new residents. She shut gatherings down because decorations violated HOA color codes. To Karen, rules weren't guidelines. They were weapons, and now she sat in court expecting another victory. The woman she had dragged into Judge Judy's courtroom was Lillian Cortez, a quiet homeowner whose alleged offense sounded ridiculous even before the details came out. Lillian had planted sunflowers in her own yard. The flowers grew tall enough to cast shadows near the corner sidewalk, and Karen claimed they violated neighborhood standards. That absurdity was exactly why the case ended up on television. When Judge Judy entered the courtroom, the energy shifted instantly. Conversation stopped. The audience quieted. Even the cameras seemed to settle. Judy carried authority effortlessly. She didn't need to raise her voice to control a room Karen either didn't notice or thought she was above it. "Good morning, Your Honor," Karen said with an exaggerated smile. "Hopefully this won't take too long. I have an HOA meeting later today." Judge Judy looked at her calmly. "We'll take exactly as long as necessary," she replied. "Now tell me why we're here." Karen straightened a stack of papers and launched into a polished speech about property values, neighborhood standards, and resident accountability. She spoke like a woman delivering a presentation to subordinates rather than addressing a judge. Meanwhile, Lillian Cortez sat quietly beside her, exhausted and visibly nervous. When Judy finally turned toward Lillian and asked how long the situation had been going on, the woman's voice shook. "Almost 3 years," she said softly. "I kept paying fines and trying to fix everything she complained about. But every time I corrected one issue, she found another." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Karen rolled her eyes. "Some people just hate following rules," she muttered. Judge Judy heard it immediately. The room went silent. Over the next several minutes, Karen interrupted repeatedly, corrected the judge more than once, and laughed whenever she believed she had made a clever point. That same mocking laugh spread through the courtroom again and again until even the audience began reacting to it. Then Judy leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said quietly, "you should choose your words carefully." Karen chuckled. That laugh changed everything. What Karen didn't realize was that Judge Judy had already reviewed far more than a simple landscaping dispute. The court had examined HOA records, complaint histories, and financial reports connected to Karen's association. And the deeper they looked, the uglier the picture became. But Karen kept talking. "Relax, Your Honor," she said dismissively. "I understand the law." The bailiff shifted slightly. Judge Judy remained perfectly calm. "I don't issue threats," Judy replied. "I issue rulings." Karen smirked again. "Well, HOA law is more complicated than normal small claims issues," she said. "Most people don't really understand how these communities operate." The audience gasped. Karen had just implied that Judge Judy didn't understand the law. Judy's expression barely changed, but her eyes hardened. Are you suggesting I'm unqualified to interpret the law, Mrs. Mitchell? Karen shrugged confidently. I'm saying I've studied property regulations extensively. I've been HOA president for 8 years. A long silence followed. Karen mistook it for hesitation. She continued speaking about maintaining standards and protecting property values, clearly expecting admiration from the room. Instead, people stared at her with disbelief. Then Judge Judy finally spoke again. "This is not your neighborhood meeting," she said firmly. "This is my courtroom. Speaking here is a privilege, not a right." Applause broke out softly from the gallery before the bailiff silenced it. Karen forced another laugh, though this one sounded thinner and far less confident. That was when Judge Judy delivered the warning that changed Karen's expression for the first time. "Keep laughing," Judy said coldly, "and we may need to discuss your own records." The color drained from Karen's face. For years, Karen had built her identity around power. She controlled Willow Creek through fear and humiliation. Residents who violated her standards were publicly embarrassed. Elderly neighbors received citations over bird feeders. Families were fined because holiday decorations stayed up too long. One family paid hundreds because a towel hung visibly from a backyard fence. Karen called it preserving standards. Everyone else called it misery. Then came the Cortez family. Lillian and her husband moved into the neighborhood hoping for peace. Instead, Karen targeted them almost immediately. Chalk drawings on the driveway became unauthorized pavement markings. Sunflowers became landscaping violations. Over time, the fines piled up to nearly $9,000. The family stopped attending neighborhood events. Their children stopped drawing outside. Karen believed fear meant respect. What she never realized was that she had created a paper trail. Judge Judy flipped through documents carefully while Karen continued defending herself. Then Judy slid a folder across the bench. "Let's discuss your HOA financial records," she said. Karen blinked. "I don't see how that's relevant." "It's relevant because you're asking this court to trust your integrity." Karen's confidence began slipping. Judy opened the folder. "These records show repeated HOA payments directed toward an account ending in 4712, she said. "That account belongs to you, correct?" The room exploded with murmurs. Karen stammered immediately. "That's a mistake." "A mistake repeated across multiple years?" Judy asked. Karen's breathing changed. Judge Judy continued reading aloud. "Tens of thousands of dollars labeled as landscaping reimbursements and community improvement expenses had allegedly been transferred into Karen's personal accounts. What exactly were these improvements?" Judy asked calmly. "Playgrounds, streetlights, or personal spending?" Karen tried denying it. Judy cut her off. "I'm reading your records, Mrs. Mitchell. If something looks dishonest, perhaps it's because it was." Karen's hands trembled visibly now. Judy wasn't finished. "And here's what interests me most," she continued, "an $8. $900 transfer into your account occurred one day after Mrs. Cortez received fines totaling the same amount." Karen looked completely stunned. "I don't remember that," she whispered. "Oh, I'm sure you don't," Judy replied sharply. "But the paperwork remembers." The courtroom fell silent. Then Judge Judy turned toward Lillian. "How much did you say you paid this association?" "Almost $9,000. Judy nodded slowly before looking back at Karen. "So fascinating," she said. "The exact same number." Karen attempted to defend herself again, but Judy finally snapped. "You stole from the people you claim to protect," she said, "and you hid behind rules while doing it." Karen's arrogance finally began collapsing. For the first time all day, she looked genuinely afraid. Then she broke. "You think you know me?" she shouted through tears. "I worked for that community. Nobody appreciated anything I did." Judge Judy stayed calm. "This isn't about effort," she said. "It's about ethics." Karen's voice weakened. "They hated me," she muttered. "They wanted me to fail. The only person who failed you," Judy replied quietly, "is the one staring back at you in the mirror." That line shattered whatever composure Karen still had. She covered her face and cried openly. Then Judge Judy revealed the final blow. During recess, state investigators reviewing the HOA finances had uncovered enough evidence to trigger formal forfeiture proceedings. Assets tied to misused community funds were now subject to seizure. The clerk read the notice aloud. Karen sat frozen while the courtroom listened. Her house, her accounts, her property. Everything connected to the missing funds could now be taken. 5 minutes earlier, she had laughed at the court. Now her entire world was collapsing in front of national television cameras. "You can't do this," she whispered weakly. Judge Judy looked directly at her. "You built your life using other people's money and fear," she said. "Now you'll learn what accountability actually feels like." The next day, Karen returned looking completely different. Gone was the makeup, the polished confidence, the smug smile. She looked exhausted and defeated. Judge Judy reviewed the final findings. Nearly $50,000 had allegedly been diverted from HOA funds over several years. Karen tried one last defense. "I was going to put it back," she said tearfully. "Borrowing requires permission," Judy answered. "You never had it." Then came the ruling. Assets tied to the fraud would be forfeited. Her home would be sold to repay damages. Karen looked horrified. "My house?" she whispered. Judge Judy didn't hesitate. "You didn't build that house honestly," she said. "You built it on other people's suffering." The courtroom remained completely silent as Karen cried openly. Lillian Cortez sat quietly nearby. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. She simply exhaled like someone finally escaping years of pressure. Judge Judy delivered one final statement before striking the gavel. "Arrogance turns mistakes into destruction," she said. "And you built an entire life around it." The case was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Karen with questions. She ignored them all and walked silently down the courthouse steps while cameras flashed around her. Meanwhile, back in Willow Creek, everything changed. The HOA board dissolved Karen's policies. Residents received refunds. Families gathered outside again without fear. Lillian replanted sunflowers in her yard. Children returned to drawing colorful chalk flowers on the sidewalks. And in the center of the neighborhood park, a wooden bench was installed beneath an old oak tree. Attached to it was a small brass plaque. "Power means nothing if it costs your humanity." Karen eventually moved into a small apartment far from the neighborhood she once controlled. The internet never forgot her downfall. Clips of her laughter replayed endlessly online. Beside the moment she realized everything was gone. One afternoon, she drove past Willow Creek and saw children laughing near Lillian's sunflowers. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Lillian simply nodded once. Karen nodded back and drove away silently. Weeks later, when reporters asked Judge Judy about the viral case, she only gave one short response. "Sometimes justice doesn't need to shout," she said. "It only needs to be seen."